think everybody here knows Tom Wilson. You can't not know Tom Wilson, I guess, but Tom's role has kind of evolved. He now is the principal chief innovation officer at the Jack Russell Code School. So I wanted to just, for my benefit as well, just kind of talk briefly about that before he jumps into the presentation, which is on React Native. And from a technical topic, and as you guys know, if there are topics that are top of mind, certainly let us know, because we can have more of these. We kind of alternate between the business topics and the technical topics. But Tom, why don't you just kind of give us a quick update as to where you are in the company and
yeah. I started Jack Russell Software back in 2007. Ended up selling it to a company that's now called Tabula Rasa Healthcare. We've got an engineering shop here in Charleston, and we're in June going to be moving to the Shem Creek building. We have about 30 people here, and we're planning to grow. And as that sort of matured, I started an innovation center called the JRS Innovation Center, and with that a coding school. And it's a very similar format to other coding camps. It's 12 weeks immersive full stack training with JavaScript and React, Redux, Lambda, CouchDB, and Node.js and Express. And we really focus on really helping folks that are ready to become a developer get from sort of I'm just out of school, or I'm interested in changing careers and I've learned a little online, all the way to having the skills to become a professional junior developer. And we finished our second cohort, and we start our third May 22nd. So if you know of anyone that's interested, let me know. We pretty much, I went through some of the technologies, but it's me and Trip and Trip Ott, who both of us have been at development and training for a long time. So we've got a lot of things that we've found along the way that we feel like we can share. And then the last thing is just a quick slide of all the technologies. It's really hard, I'm not going to lie. It's not easy to do this kind of thing, so you have to be prepared. But I found that this type of immersion to get started is a great way to get your career going and get a foundation, because it is a very noisy universe out there with every morning you wake up, there's a new framework, there's a new tool, there's a new device, virtual reality's coming, right? All of this stuff, and it's hard to sort of focus, but that's what we try to do. So that's a little bit about me, but I wanted to talk about React Native today. How many of you guys write code for the web? Good, pretty much everybody. So this will be a little bit technical, so if you're scared of looking at code, I apologize. We will look at a little code, but hopefully not much. Is there any mobile developers, iOS or Android? Oh, okay, great. This talk will be perfect for you guys. So asking the question, what is React Native? Before we can get to what React Native is, we need to talk a little bit about React. And React is a front-end framework to build the view side of web applications. So web applications has gotten pretty complex over the years. Back in 2001, you could just do an HTML, write a little JavaScript, send some data to the back end, and you had an app. But nowadays, it's gotten a lot more complex. The front end has become really powerful with HTML5 and these new versions of JavaScript, which ES 2016 is the latest, 2017 is on the horizon. And with these tools, you can do a lot more on the front end. So React is a tool that allows you to build web applications on the front end, primarily with the view. So that's React, and one of the most important things is that it puts an abstraction between the platform and the framework. And this abstraction looks very similar to HTML. So you may create a component that component looks like HTML, but it actually transpiles into JavaScript and runs. This is a very powerful concept, and it enables you to build things against that abstraction and let tools like Webpack and Babel sort of compile your code to be presented optimally on the web. Let the computer do the hard bits, so to speak. Now, here's a diagram to show sort of how React Native fits in. So that's a little bit about React. React Native, because of this abstraction with React, they were able, Facebook and the open source community was able to create an abstraction very similar to how they did with React to the browser, but a bridge between mobile devices. And what that enables you to do is basically learn React once and be able to write anywhere. And that's sort of this tagline for React Native. They're also working on an abstraction with virtual reality, and you can write virtual reality applications with React as well. Any questions about this? So the promise here is that you should be able to have that same sort of high fidelity that you have when you're working in the web. You know, when you make a change, you can see it on the web page instantly. With React Native, that is really the goal. And one of the things it does that's different than some other sort of JavaScript mobile frameworks like Ionic or others like that, or Cordova, is that it uses the actual native UI components. So you get a more native feel, even though it's JavaScript behind the scenes. And that gives you a lot of performance. Some mobile developers have claimed that the scrolling, for example, for React Native is actually out of the box more performant than the iOS scrolling. Now, with the way that they have explained it, because I'm not a mobile developer, is that with the iOS scrolling, you have to spend a significant amount of time tweaking that, and React Native has optimized that sensitivity pretty well. But again, from a web developer standpoint, I think this has really become a great way to build or move your apps into the mobile space. At least from starting with prototypes to actually getting a lot of high feedback with your application. I think one of the things with the web, at least with our stakeholders, they're very used to seeing changes happen quickly. They do not like to say 2 weeks before they get the change, right? Or 2 days, or I don't know when you're going to get that change. So React Native actually gives you a way to do hot code pushes so that you can actually push your changes to an app that's already deployed in either App Store, and the users will get that immediately. And that's one of the biggest benefits. I think the two biggest benefits is the ability to push your code when you're ready to push it to your users without them having to click on the update. I bet you if you look on your phone and you go to your app store and see updates, that you probably have 20 apps that have new versions that you haven't updated. The other thing is that the development experience, right? So when you're a mobile developer, you have to still compile your code, and then you have to deploy your code either to the simulator or to the device. And that is a very cumbersome loop-back process. So your tendency is to make a lot of changes and then do the compile and then do the feedback. But the more changes you make when you do that compile, the more you have to troubleshoot to figure out where the problem is. And they've gotten better at it, but I think the React Native experience trumps that a little bit. And I'll try to show a demo. So that was really why, is really efficiency for both the developer and the user to be able to get their changes quickly. So let me show a demo, and I'm going to do a couple of demos. One is a really neat tool that you can get started right away playing around with, and it's called snack.expo.io. And what this does is it allows you to download this Expo.io app, which you can use to test your React Native apps. And once you download that app, you can shake it here. You can go to the app and say scan QR code, and you just scan that QR code. And what's cool is that it immediately syncs with your phone. So now I can go into this code and make a couple of changes. And I have to do this sort of weird. Okay, so and then once that saves, you can see that it immediately renders on my phone. And we can also pull up this little iframe, which will actually show us this code compiled in a little simulator online. And you'll be able to see this too. Right. Oh yeah, and if we want to see Android versions, we can just click Android and hit tap. And again, my phone is synced to it, and it's updating at the same time as well. So you can really put this phone right next to your computer and this browser and start developing immediately, which is kind of powerful. Pretty good feedback loop. All right. So with that, that's a great way to get started. You don't have to install anything on your browser or your computer, but then you can also install the app on your phone, or if you don't want to do that, you can use the simulator. And the other neat thing about this is this sort of toolkit that sits on top of React Native called Expo.io comes with some optimized components that you can use right out of the box. So if you wanted to, quickly play around with a map view, you literally can just drag that component on, and you've got a map on your phone. Kind of neat. So you can, and the other thing is you can share this screen with friends too. So all of you guys, if you had this app loaded, could go to this QR code, could take your phone, scan the QR code, and you would be seeing my same experience, right? So, and you don't have to be sitting next to each other. You can actually save the changes with a URL, post those. So this is a really great way to get started, maybe do some mock-ups, get some feedback really quick on your React Native experience. And if you look at the code, if you've ever looked at React, you should see that this doesn't look totally different. The only thing is you don't have any HTML elements. You have custom components. One is called a view, which is pretty much like a div in HTML. So you would use the view component, and then the other core component is text. And there's a bunch others, and then there's all of these custom components that you can leverage to do things specifically on the phone. But it's very much the React experience. The other thing that's interesting, because both iOS and Android have different layout platforms, and as a web developer, we're pretty used to CSS as our styling. So React Native built a subset of CSS specifically based on Flexbox. How many of you are familiar with Flexbox? Like it? Yeah? maybe. Um, well, it's what you get with React Native. So here we're just setting the padding top to the status bar height. And if you have ever built a native app with iOS, you know you have to account for that status bar height to move down. And what this toolkit does is it goes ahead and detects the device, regardless of what you're using, and allows you to do the padding top there. And then we're just doing some background color, setting a paragraph. And then with React Native, you just set style and set your style sheet that you created, and you get the style. Pretty cool. Any questions so far? Okay, so
I actually do have one.
Sure.
The component library provided by this site, so they've already developed all the components for you, so like.
well, they've got some components, right? So what they've tried to do is they want to help you stay in that hot push mode so that you don't have to deploy your app to the App Store every time you want to do a change.
Mm-hmm.
So this Expo group, which is actually a group of developers working together, I don't know if they're officially a company. I think they're just a bunch of developers, but I may be wrong about that. But they have worked together, and it's all open source, to go ahead and create these JavaScript shims, if you will, to the native functionality, right? So that comes packaged in this Create React Native App Toolkit,
Okay.
already pre-packaged, ready for your use. So they basically, when you ship your app on the store, it'll already have all of those components, and then you can reference them, turn them on or turn them off through your JavaScript.
Yeah, I think Ionic has similar kind of things, like maps and things you can turn on and off.
Yeah, the key difference to note is this is using all of the native sides, where the Ionic, I guess with Cordova you can get access to some of the native pieces too. Yeah, so through Cordova, yeah, it would be very similar to that. Cool. So that's the easy experience. A little bit. But you can only do like one file, so that's not, once you start to play around with this, you want to do a little bit more. And so what they have is, how many of you are familiar with the Create React App CLI? Few? So the Create React App CLI basically takes some opinions throughout the ecosystem and puts them into a process that you can run, so you just get testing. You get all of these opinions set up for you to go. And they're a pretty good trade-off. They've had a lot of discussions to do that. And what Expo.io has done is created a similar tool with the React Native team called Create React Native. And Create React Native basically allows you to, let's see, probably went to the wrong link. Here we go. Basically, it's just a command line tool that you get the exact same experience as you do with Create React App. You just npm install Create React Native App, and then you call Create React Native App and your project, and it'll give you a full setup. You actually don't have to install Xcode or Android toolkits to actually run it. You can run it from the command line, and I'll try to demo that a little bit as well. So you can get an idea of the experience. One second. no, don't tell me it won't show. There we go. Okay, so when you have Create React App installed, you get a directory similar to this, where you have your app.js as your starter file, and you have basically a standard React project, and you can just do npm start, and it'll start up, but it's not going to launch a web browser to start playing the app there. It's going to actually start up and give you a QR code. Then you can take that QR code, and if your phone is on the same network as your computer, you can take that QR code, and again, you're back in hot mode just like I was through the browser, and you're actually able to develop and see it on your phone in real time. Even errors come through that experience as well, so you can see an error when it happens. You can load it on Android or iOS. You can also load the simulator, so if you do install the simulator, you can, let's see if I have one running.
So is that pushing the app to the phone?
It is. So we can load this simulator here, and it's connecting. And let's see, it may. I don't know if I've got a different address. So let me come up here to project and just type in exp 172.2.253. Oops. Colon. Okay. So it's going to attempt to look for that 172.172.253. The other way that you could bring it up is basically do npm run iOS, and it will detect that you have an iOS simulator, and it'll actually connect to it and start driving changes that way as well.
And is that the simulator that came with Create React Native, or like an Xcode?
That's just Xcode. Yeah, you just install it through Xcode. Same thing with the Android simulator, and React Native will detect it and attempt to launch it as you're running. So we have that running, and I did try to make a little bit of an interesting demo if we want to have some fun. So I created this small little chat app, and I created a web version and a mobile version. So if you take this URL and actually go to that website, it'll direct you to install Expo, and then it'll load this little easy chat mobile, which is styled by professionals, not. It's a very simple app. But it's a simple chat app, and basically once you get that installed, if you want to play along, you can start posting, and you can see something like this, and you can go and like change your name. Tom, hit done, and then you could type something interesting like hello, and when you type it, I'll see it, just sort of a basic a chat. There's also a web version, give you a few more seconds, called easychat.now.sh, and we'll show that too to just do the whole demo. But this is great for getting feedback from testers, right? That are not, super proficient at being able to install apps and things. You can just give them this link. It'll take them, install the Expo, and take them straight to your app, and they're immediately testing it. And you're getting the feedback you want. So that's kind of cool.
Do you have to have it still running, or does it just deploy onto their server and you can keep working on your machine?
Right, so this is a build that I published. So this was one I published this morning. So it will run on their servers and push the code to you. But all it is pushing the JavaScript bundle to your phone, right? Is it not working for you?
That wasn't my question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Saying when you run and you get that link, you said you can just give that to QA, right?
Right.
Do you have to have that command still running on your computer for
No.
them to be able?
No, it'll be published. Has everyone got the URL? Good? Okay. So I'm just going to open up this easy chat here. Easy chat. There we go. And again, it's really awesome stuff. So if I didn't want to do that. Control E. There we go. There we go. Cool. So I can go in and change my name to web and hit done and say hello. Right. Pretty neat. Okay. So, again, it's not a super awesome user interface, but the fact that, in just a few hours was able to spin up a React Native app and deploy it and get people using it in less than a few minutes. There's something to be said for that, right? There's something to be said for that feedback and that fidelity. These are some of the things that you can do. I published both of these projects on my GitHub, and I'll be happy to share them. So if you want to look at it, the main reason is that you can do a comparison between the code of the web and the code of the native and see the differences between it. There's not that many differences. Now the apps won't work because I'll kill my key that's going to the database that's sharing the data, but it's using a couch database, so I'll provide instructions. So if you want to use something like Cloudit, you can set it up and get the apps working as well. But basically, all that's happening is when you type, it's sending that message to a server, and then there's a listener listening for changes, and when the change happens, it displays to your list view. So not a lot of stuff, but it, hopefully made for a good real-time demo, and you're actually able to play with some of it. And I encourage you to go look at the code, because I think, really, if you have some really good web developers, they should be able to pick up React Native pretty quickly. It should not be that unintuitive. There's a couple of, just with any technology, there will be a couple of learning curve things, but nothing major. So that was some live, that was the only other thing I was going to do was do some live coding, but I don't want to take too much more time. But I can do that if we have time. I don't know. What time is, how are we on time?
9:05.
9:05, okay. Cool. So 9:30? Good. Maybe we'll have some time. Again, if you're not used to React, I'll post these slides, but here's a link to React to get started. React Native, again, the official documents and a blog introducing Create React Native, and then Snack Expo. And then I just did a little workshop with React Native earlier this week for our internal team, and I'm happy to share that too at this Learn React Native. It sort of walks you through building a to-do application. So but still a little bit better UI than my little chat. But you can go through, and it's got a good rundown of all the sort of differences of React, from sort of the core components to the styling, icons. And there's a huge ecosystem out there, a lot of decisions to make. One of the things that I came up to is authentication. So we use Auth0 for our authentication, and they do have a solution where you can essentially load a web browser, do a redirect, and get your information back. So it handled Auth0 fine. You can also eject it if you want to get to the metal and actually write Objective-C or Java. You can inject the app and write and publish your own. You can also pull this and publish it as a standalone app. Expo.io allows you to do that. They'll actually do that for you. So if you give them your account credentials, they'll actually build that and build the IPA and the APK for you. And then you have push notifications. So that's something I didn't have time to go into, but you can set up a little server and do push notifications with your app. And then the last thing to talk about is animation. Really research animation. There's a lot of information out there. I'm leaning toward this module called Animated. Animated originally started from React Native, but they're actually porting that, and they've got an alpha version for React Web. And the reason that I'm really digging Animated is because I really like the fact that learn once, write anywhere. So if I can learn one animation library and use it for my web transitions and my native transitions and get the best of both worlds, that's where I want to be. But there's a lot of solutions out there. Ruby Motion is another good one. And then routing. Routing is the same thing. There's no one sort of canonical router yet, but I really think React Router is pretty close. They have demoed that they've got the abstraction right on version 4, and I think they do. So you literally can write a router, and that's what's going on in this app. When we click here, it's routing to this page, and then it's routing back. There's no animation on it, but all I did was just create 2 routes with React Router and import native router instead of browser router. And I've got full routing on my native, and it's sort of presented the same way as you route on the web. It also supports deep linking. Is anyone familiar with deep linking? So deep linking allows you to give full URLs to your native app, and it'll actually go to that particular page in your app, very much like the web URLs work, which is really, really nice. And it works great with Redux. If you're familiar with Redux, this app has Redux in it, so you can see that. Let's see. And publishing is pretty simple. When you want to publish your app, there's a couple of ways to do it, but the first thing you do, and let's since we have time, let's see if we can make a code change here. Let's go. See if it'll. Of course, it popped up on the screen. Now this is going to be crazy. Okay. So let's go to messages, and one of the things that I noticed this morning was the text input was sort of hidden when the keyboard popped up. So let's see if I can make a change where we just basically take this text input and we'll just put that above our list view here. And then we'll add margin top. padding top, 50. Okay. We'll hit save, and now the world is going to come to an end, right? So we'll do npm run iOS first, and hopefully what it'll do is reload my phone. And one of the things I did with this is just not to put too much traffic on the web, is that it only, when you first open up the chat app, it only starts at that point, so it doesn't get any of the history at this point. So it'll clear all my history once it starts back up. But there is hot module reloading that's also supported in React Native. So you can leverage that as well, which will keep your state if you're using a tool like Redux and just change your components. Let's see. Let me restart this. All right, so it moved it up to the top, and hopefully it worked. Cool. So now let's publish this. So I just do exp, which is a command line app for expo.io, and type publish. You do have to create an account for this, but if you do publish, then what it'll do, and it may take a little bit longer, but then everyone that downloaded my app, they will get this change the next time that you run the app. It will come to you. So that's kind of cool. And it's that simple to publish in that high feedback loop, and then you can do exp package and package your bits, and then they'll compile for you, and then you can submit that to the Apple Store and get it on the store. And then from that point on, you can do these hot pushes to your code from there. So while that's deploying, I'll take any questions.
So you only get that functionality if you use Expo, right? You can't use just the basic React Native.
Yeah, so there's other tools out there. There's Code Push from Microsoft. It does very similar, and you can use just React Native for that. React Native is a little bit deeper to get in. So if if the Expo Create React Native experience, if your opinions don't agree with that, then there's a whole nother set in the React Native docs where you can go all the way down to that level, or you can eject. But they also offer sort of a middle stream, so you can eject and add your custom components, but keep the Expo kit so that you still are able to push this. The only thing you wouldn't be able to push is anything that you shim that has native code, right? You would have to deploy that through the store. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. Well, let's see. Did anyone verify to see if they got the new version? I can do it. And you can, anytime you want to switch apps, you can just shake your phone, which is kind of nice.
How long has Expo been around? Like, would you take it to production, or is it just good for rapid prototyping?
They've been around for over a year now. React Native's been around for a year and a half, and part of the React Native team, core developers, works for Expo. So their whole goal is to try to make the developer experience as close to web development as possible. And it is production worthy. You can build production React Native apps with Expo. But their goal is to provide you that high fidelity feedback loop experience versus compile, deploy to your simulator, deploy to your phone, every 5-10 minutes, right? And you just don't get, in my opinion, it's not as productive as a developer having that 5-minute wait every time you push a new feature, in my opinion. So leveraging tools like Expo, getting into native if you're a web developer, I highly recommend doing this. I've got some guys that went the other way, and they spent a lot of time pulling their hair out because it's just not intuitive when you come from the web. Any other questions?
Could you describe a little bit more how it was run in the browser? Because there just seems to be so much emphasis you develop using React Native, and it's all about mobile, but it seems like you could develop it for all platforms, for a browser as well.
Yeah, so Microsoft just released a toolkit where you could actually use the same sort of set of components, and it will actually figure out not only if it's iOS or Android, but it'll also figure out if it's web. And then so you really write once and run anywhere. Still early days, and it's basically one of the trade-offs is you sort of have to give up HTML. You have to give up sort of div tags and spans and H1s and those things and commit to more pure components. So it's out there. Other people are iterating on that. And who knows? Who knows where that's going to go? But it is definitely early days for that.
How stable is React Native? I mean, have you pushed something to production already using it? Because I know like a year ago I heard a talk on this, and it was changing so rapidly.
Yeah, it's starting to settle down. It's still in churn, but it's actually so you have bleeding edge, right? That sort of thing of bleeding edge technologies. You have leading edge technologies, then you have mainstream, right? If you want to just put things in those three buckets, I would say React Native is coming from out of the bleeding edge area, and it's sort of on that crest becoming leading edge, right? And that's where I really look to invest in technologies, is once they've gone out of that bleeding edge, because I just don't have that much time to go through that churn. But this is really there. So, if you're more of leading edge to mainstream, I'd give it 6 more months. And put a note, give it 6 more months. It is ready today. We are actually staged to release a couple of applications in production with React Native around July of this year. And we've been really enjoying the feedback on it. But it is just crossing that barrier from bleeding edge to really leading edge stuff, where you actually have real productivity tools that you leverage and package. The other con of adopting something like this is just to be aware of is you have 2 communities, or really 3. So if Google is constantly re-changing their sort of design stuff, right? So if they decide, and I think I heard last week that they're going, they're using the tabs on the top, and now they've shifted to go to the tabs to the bottom, and everybody's like, oh, now you're doing this more like Apple now. So Apple was right? But I don't think there'll ever be like one UI kit for both iOS and Android. It's going to always be different. And those vendors, the way they sell new phones is to release new UI, make it look shinier. So then once they do that, right, then the React Native ecosystem has to hop into gear, and any of the third-party components have to hop into gear to change. So you're going to always have that kind of challenge to deal with. But the trade-off, again, to get something validated and out there in the time that it takes, versus having 3 separate development teams manage your core feature set, I think it's worth thinking about or discussing and doing some A and B testing, if you will. Because, again, a feature's ready on the web. You don't want to have to wait until it's ready on the iOS platform or on the Android platform. But when you have an app that works on all 3, that's sort of what you're committing to. Slack is a perfect example of that, right? They use They use sort of web technologies, but when they released a new feature, it took a while to propagate on all their systems because they support desktop, they support mobile, they support all of this. So you had that lag time where some people were getting the new features, some people weren't, etc. Cool. Any more questions?
Do you see where Apple or Google are kind of look down on this technology versus writing in native code? Are they keeping apps from like moving to like feature apps or moving into the top 100 types of things?
I think that day has passed. I think I see Google moving to PWAs or progressive web apps where they actually want to embrace more web technologies because Google is a web company. That's their primary their primary focus. So they're really pushing hard to build progressive web apps, and I think progressive web apps are awesome. But it comes with sort of you build that and you don't get the same kind of performance on iOS, right? And iOS, I think, again, they move at their pace, at their process. But, one of the trends is with the App Store is you're seeing like a lot of usage from like the top 10 apps and not a lot of usage for other apps. So I think the consumer app market is a whole interesting thing to think about. It's not, the tagline is not to release your app and profit, right? Actually, there's a lot of companies that actually have to pay people to download their app in one way or another. I always think of Chick-fil-A, giving a free Chick-fil-A sandwich if you download their app, right? They're essentially paying you to download the app, So that whole world is turning. But then the other side is the enterprise. The enterprise, users are not satisfied sitting at their desks 9 to 5 anymore, right? And they want to do more and more of their work on their phone. So I think you're seeing a lot of interest in the enterprise to ship sort of small apps that help their SaaS platform or their desktop platforms to work on mobile to allow their workforce to be more mobile, right? So I think you're seeing a lot of that and a lot of requests for that in the mobile space that may not be trying to reach the consumers to add a sticker to a message as much as just trying to let someone that can't come in the office this day get their work done without having to log into a VPN and do everything they need to do remotely. So. Cool. Well, that's the intro to React Native. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.